In the next 18 months, the largest wealth transfer in 75 years is going to happen. And the painful truth is this: most people will be on the wrong side of it. Not because they are unintelligent, not because they did not work hard, but because they are still buying 5 specific things that quietly guarantee financial destruction during every major debt cycle transition in recorded history. Ray Dalio predicted the 2008 financial crisis with precision when almost every major institution on Wall Street missed it entirely. He built Bridgewater Associates into the world's largest hedge fund, managing over $124 billion, and he has spent more than 5 decades studying every major economic collapse, debt cycle, and empire transition across 500 years of history. His research is not opinion. It is pattern recognition applied to the largest data set of economic history ever assembled by a single investor. And right now, that research shows something that most people are completely unprepared to hear. We are in the late stages of a long-term debt cycle, the kind of transition that has occurred only a handful of times in modern history, the kind that always ends the same way, with a massive redistribution of wealth from the people who did not understand the pattern to the people who did. The 5 things we are about to walk through are not small mistakes. They are not minor inefficiencies in your budget. They are systematic, structural errors that have destroyed wealth for ordinary people in every single debt cycle transition across the last century. The Dutch Empire in the 1600s, the British Empire in the 1930s, Latin America in the 1980s, Japan in the 1990s, the United States in 2008. Every single time, the same categories of spending kept people trapped on the losing side of the transfer. And right now, in 2026, with total United States debt exceeding $36 trillion and interest payments on that debt approaching $1 trillion annually for the first time in history, the window to get on the right side is closing faster than most people realize. Before we go through each one, let me tell you a story that Ray Dalio himself has shared publicly because it is the foundation of everything that follows. In 1982, Dalio stood in front of cameras and publicly predicted a depression. He was completely certain. He told his clients to bet everything on his prediction being correct. He went on national television. He staked his entire professional reputation on what he believed was an inevitable economic collapse. And he was completely and utterly wrong. The economy did not collapse. The market went up. His clients left. His reputation was destroyed in a matter of months. He had to borrow $4,000 from his own father just to keep the lights on. He had a wife and 2 young children and did not know how he was going to support them. That failure became the single most important turning point in his career, because it forced him to stop making predictions based on what he believed should happen and start studying patterns based on what has actually happened across centuries of documented economic history. It forced him to ask a different question entirely. Not what do I think is going to happen, but what has always happened in situations that look exactly like this one. And when you study the spending and saving behaviors of ordinary people across every major debt crisis in modern history, the same 5 categories appear every single time, the same 5 mistakes, the same 5 wealth destroyers. Let us go through them one by one with the brutal mathematical honesty they deserve. Here is something that most people have never been told directly. A car is not transportation. A car is a mechanism for transferring wealth from your pocket to someone else's pocket at a speed and scale that most people never fully calculate. Let us do the math together right now, because the numbers are genuinely shocking when you see them clearly. You walk into a dealership and you purchase a brand new vehicle for $50,000. The moment you drive that vehicle off the lot, its market value drops to approximately $40,000. You have just lost $10,000 in the time it takes to drive home. By the end of year 3, that same vehicle is worth roughly $25,000. You have lost 50% of your capital in 36 months on an asset that you use every single day. But here is the part that truly destroys people during debt cycle transitions. They do not pay cash for these vehicles. They finance them. They take out loans at 6, 7, even 8% interest to purchase something that is simultaneously losing 15 to 20% of its value every single year. This is what financial professionals call being underwater. You owe more than the asset is worth. And when the economic transition arrives, when you need liquidity, when you need financial flexibility, you are completely trapped. You cannot sell the asset for what you owe on it. You cannot stop making payments without destroying your credit. You are locked inside a depreciating liability that you are paying interest to hold. Ray Dalio did not drive luxury vehicles when he was building his first company. He drove whatever got him from one place to another reliably and cheaply. Because he understood something that most people never learn until it is too late. Every single dollar consumed by depreciation is a dollar that cannot compound. It is a dollar permanently removed from your future wealth. Let us make this concrete. That $50,000 that you spent on a new vehicle, if instead you had invested it at a 10% average annual return, which is roughly the historical average of a broad market index fund over long periods, that $50,000 becomes $336,000 over 20 years. You are not buying a car. You are trading $336,000 in future wealth for the temporary psychological satisfaction of driving something new off a lot. The wealthy do not make this trade. They never have. Here is the practical alternative. A 3-year-old certified pre-owned vehicle from a reliable manufacturer has already absorbed the steepest portion of its depreciation curve. Someone else paid the $10,000 penalty for driving it off the lot. You get reliable, functional transportation for roughly half the cost of the same vehicle purchased new. The difference in purchase price, invested consistently and compounded over time, becomes the foundation of serious wealth accumulation. This is not about sacrifice. This is about understanding what money actually is and what it is actually capable of doing when it is not being consumed by a machine sitting in your driveway losing value while you sleep. Now let us talk about the second wealth destroyer. And this one requires a level of intellectual honesty that most people find genuinely uncomfortable because society has spent decades teaching everyone the exact opposite of the truth. Your home is not your biggest asset. Your home is your biggest liability, and the distinction matters enormously, especially during the late stage of a long-term debt cycle. An asset is something that puts money into your pocket every single month. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket every single month. Your primary residence takes money out of your pocket every single month without exception. Mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance premiums, maintenance costs, repair bills, utility expenses. The list never ends and the payments never stop. The total cost of homeownership is almost always dramatically higher than the purchase price alone, yet almost nobody calculates the real number before making the commitment. Let us look at what happened in Japan, because Japan is the most instructive example of what over-leveraging on residential real estate actually looks like when the debt cycle ends. In 1989, Japanese real estate was the most valuable in the world by any measure. Tokyo land prices had reached levels so extraordinary that the grounds of the Imperial Palace were theoretically worth more than all the real estate in the state of California combined. Japanese citizens and investors believed with complete conviction that real estate prices in Japan could not fall in any meaningful way. The island nation had limited land, a wealthy and growing population, and decades of appreciation behind it. The fundamentals seemed not just solid, but unassailable. Then the debt cycle ended. Real estate prices fell for 20 consecutive years. From peak to trough, residential real estate in Japan lost between 60 and 70% of its value. Someone who purchased a home in Tokyo in 1989, believing they were making the safest possible financial decision, would not break even until approximately 2020. 30 years of zero price appreciation while simultaneously paying a mortgage, property taxes, maintenance costs, and insurance on an asset worth less than what they owed on it. That is the reality of what over-leveraging on housing looks like when the cycle turns. The same pattern played out in the United States in 2007 and 2008. People who had stretched to purchase the maximum house the bank would approve watched their home values collapse by 40% or more within 3 years. Here is the thing about debt that most people fundamentally misunderstand. Debt is a tool. Like every tool, it produces completely different outcomes depending on how it is used. When sophisticated investors borrow money to acquire productive assets that generate consistent cash flow, that is debt working for them. When ordinary people borrow the maximum amount a bank will approve to purchase the largest house they can possibly justify, that is debt working against them. They are using leverage to acquire a liability that drains cash flow every single month and offers zero return until the day they sell, assuming the market cooperates. Do you know the actual total cost of a $500,000 home financed with a 30-year mortgage at 7% interest? You will pay over $1,100,000 by the time the final payment is made. $600,000 in interest payments alone for the privilege of borrowing money. That is not building wealth. That is the single largest wealth transfer most ordinary people will ever participate in. And they participate in it willingly because society told them it was the smart thing to do. The alternative strategy is straightforward. Purchase half the house the bank says you can afford. If they approve you for $500,000, buy a $250,000 home. The size does not matter. The neighborhood prestige does not matter. What matters is the gap between what you are spending on housing and what you could be investing in assets that actually generate returns. Warren Buffett, worth over $100 billion by any recent estimate, still lives in the same house he purchased in 1958 for $31,500. This is not a coincidence or an eccentricity. It is the most visible demonstration of a principle he has applied consistently across 7 decades of wealth accumulation. Every dollar not spent on an unnecessarily large house is a dollar available to compound in productive investments. And when you are 12 to 24 months away from a major debt cycle deleveraging, as the current data strongly suggests, the people who are not over-leveraged on housing will be positioned to purchase assets at distressed prices. The people who are over-leveraged will be the ones selling at those prices, often with no choice in the matter. The third wealth destroyer sounds trivial when you first hear it. People dismiss it immediately. It is food spending, restaurants, takeout, delivery applications, coffee shops, daily lunches. And the reason people dismiss it is because the individual transactions feel too small to matter. But the arithmetic, when you actually run it completely and honestly, is absolutely devastating. The average American household spends over $3,000 per year on dining outside the home. $3,000 invested annually for 30 years at a 10% average annual return becomes over $500,000. You are not spending $3,000 per year on restaurant meals. You are trading $500,000 in retirement wealth for the temporary convenience and pleasure of food you will not remember eating by next week. But the number is actually significantly worse than that for most households. Pull out your bank statements from the last 30 days right now and count every single food transaction, every coffee purchase, every lunch, every dinner delivery, every weekend brunch. Most people, when they do this exercise honestly for the first time, discover they are spending between $300 and $500 per month on food outside the home. That is between $3,600 and $6,000 per year. Take the higher number. $6,000 per year invested at 10% over 30 years. That is over $1 million. You are consuming your retirement one meal at a time, and the sensation of doing so is so gradual, so normalized, so invisible in the daily flow of life that most people never stop to calculate what it actually costs. The alternative does not require misery or deprivation. It requires a single behavioral shift. Cook most of your food at home. Prepare meals in advance on a single day each week. Bring your lunch to work. Make your coffee before you leave the house. These are not hardships. These are the behaviors, documented consistently across the financial histories of wealthy people, that separate the people who build serious wealth from the people who spend their entire working lives wondering why they never seem to get ahead despite earning a reasonable income. The principle underneath this is delayed gratification, and Ray Dalio has been explicit about this in his public writing and interviews. The ability to say no to immediate consumption in order to say yes to future financial independence is not just a financial skill. It is the foundational psychological trait that separates every successful long-term investor from every person who stays financially trapped their entire life. The money exists for most people reading this. It is just being spent on things that disappear rather than things that compound. The fourth wealth destroyer goes deeper than any specific product category. It is a psychology, a mental operating system, and it is one that the entire modern advertising and consumer economy has been specifically engineered to install in as many people as possible because it generates trillions of dollars in revenue for the companies that benefit from it. We live inside a system that has been deliberately designed to make people feel inadequate. The fashion industry, the consumer technology industry, the luxury goods market, the entire advertising complex. Their collective business model depends entirely on convincing you that what you currently have is not good enough, that you need the new version, the updated model, the current season, the right brand, new phone every 12 months, new wardrobe every season, new watch to signal the right status to the right people, upgrade, update, replace. The trap is not that these things are inherently worthless. Some of them are genuinely useful and pleasurable. The trap is the psychology behind the purchasing. The trap is buying things primarily to manage how other people perceive you rather than because the item genuinely improves your life in a meaningful and lasting way. Here is the truth that nobody in the consumer economy wants you to understand. Nobody cares what you are wearing as much as you think they do. The people whose opinion you are trying to influence with your material purchases are either too focused on managing their own impressions to notice yours, or they are judging you based on criteria that have nothing to do with your possessions. And the people who are actually impressed by your watch or your handbag or your car are almost never the people whose respect and admiration has any real value in your life. The research on what genuinely impresses successful, accomplished, financially sophisticated people is consistent and clear. They are impressed by your understanding of how money actually works, by your grasp of economic cycles and historical patterns, by your ability to delay gratification and make systematic, disciplined decisions under pressure, not by your shoes, not by your watch, not by the brand of your luggage. Let us run the arithmetic one final time on this category. The average American household spends approximately $2,000 per year on clothing alone. Add the unnecessary annual phone upgrades, the new gadgets, the seasonal wardrobe replacements, the status purchases of various kinds. For a significant percentage of households, this total reaches $4,000 to $5,000 per year. $4,000 per year invested at 10% over 30 years is $650,000. $5,000 per year over the same period is over $800,000. $750,000 spent over a working lifetime on objects designed to make strangers think better of you for approximately 2 weeks before you forget you own them. That is not living well. That is financial destruction wearing the costume of a lifestyle. The fifth and final wealth destroyer is the most insidious of all because it operates in complete silence. It requires no conscious decision. It drains your wealth automatically, invisibly, month after month, without ever demanding your attention or your awareness. Subscriptions. Gym memberships you signed up for in January and have not used since March. Streaming platforms you pay for every month and watch once a quarter. Software applications you downloaded for a specific project 2 years ago and have not opened since. Premium tiers of free services that you upgraded impulsively and never actually needed. $10 here. $15 there. $25 for something you cannot even immediately name when you try to think of it. None of these feel significant in isolation. That is precisely what makes them so destructive at scale. Most households, when they conduct a genuinely honest audit of their monthly recurring charges, discover between 3 and 6 active subscriptions they had completely forgotten about. Forgotten, not discontinued. Still actively charging, still silently draining. Here is a real example of what this looks like in practice. Someone audits their bank statements and discovers they are paying $75 per month for a gym membership they have not used in over 2 years. $60 per month for 4 streaming services when they genuinely only watch content on one of them regularly. $90 per month for a meal kit delivery service. They use approximately once per month because the ingredients often go bad before they get around to cooking. $40 per month in various software subscriptions for applications they downloaded once and never opened again. Total, $265 per month. $3,180 per year. Money leaving their account automatically every single month for services providing virtually no value to their actual life. $3,180 per year invested at 10% over 30 years becomes over $520,000, over $500,000 in potential future wealth, being silently consumed by subscriptions that require no active decision to continue because the default is always to keep charging until you explicitly stop them. The solution is mechanical and takes less than 1 hour to implement completely. On the first day of every quarter, January, April, July, and October, open every bank and credit card statement and identify every single recurring charge. For each one, ask 3 questions without sentiment or justification. Have I actively used this in the last 90 days? Does the value it provides clearly exceed its cost? Would I sign up for this today if I did not already have it? If the answer to any of those 3 questions is no, cancel it immediately. Not next week, not after you finish the current billing period, immediately. This single quarterly practice for most households recovers between $1,500 and $3,000 per year. Money that was leaving silently and can now be redirected toward assets that compound.